confused as to what BMW is doing with the naming of its models, you're not alone. From numbers to letters, different body styles to filling categories with every single new model, it's mind-boggling. This is the recently facelifted 420i Gran Coupé. There's not too much to talk about in terms of updates, so we're going to use the opportunity to help out those of you who aren't out-and-out BMW fanatics and don't know your 3s from your GTs.
The 4 Series has sold over 400,000 units worldwide since it first went on sale in 2013. In South Africa, just over 5,000 people have bought it over the years, which appears paltry in comparison with the common Garden 3 Series, on which it's based. But what exactly is the relationship?
All right, let's start with the first number, which is the 4, which denotes that it's a 4 Series. The easiest way to remember it with BMWs is that odd numbers are 4 doors, even numbers are 2 doors. At least it used to be that way until they introduced the Gran Coupé. So now the even numbers are more like sporty versions of the odd numbers. So a 1 Series in a sporty version is a 2 Series. A 4 Series, which is what we're driving, is like a sporty 3 Series, and so on. Except that the 6 Series isn't actually related to the 5 Series at all, which is why the current 6 Series, when it gets its successor, will be renamed the 8 Series. It's all very confusing.
On the outside, not too much has changed on the facelifted 4. The nose gets restyled LEDs as opposed to the old Xenons, and you now get fogs as standard. The air intakes are different, and they've added what BMW calls an apron at the back for that sporty touch. It's a handsome car, no doubt, but when it comes to the Gran Coupé, looks aren't the only selling point over the 3 Series. Both the Coupé and the Gran Coupé offer 5mm of extra length than the 3 Series, which should mean extra legroom, and interestingly are both the same price. So essentially you're getting 2 doors for free on the Gran Coupé then. They do add 50 kilograms of weight though, which would explain the difference in the drive of the two, added to which the sleeker Coupé sits 14mm wider.
Right, let's move on to the next bit. So this is a 420, which ordinarily that 20 would denote the size of the engine, being a 2 litre. So if you drove a 430, it would be a 3 litre, and a 440, yes, you guessed it, that would be a 4 litre. Not so anymore, because actually the 430 has the same 2 litre engine now as the 420. The only difference is that it has a higher output. So the best thing to remember with the BMW 20s, 30s and 40s is that the higher it is, the bigger the output. This 420D we're driving, plenty sufficient at 140 kilowatts and 400 Newton meters. Not the most refined diesel I've ever driven, but for a novice BMW driver, nothing wrong.
Mated to the optional 8-speed Steptronic in our test car, this engine makes the 4 Series Gran Coupé more cruiser than dynamo. What's new to this facelifted model is the suspension, which is now stiffer, supposedly to offer a sportier drive without it being too firm. It's not bad, and I would say a pretty good compromise between the two. Dynamics have been improved all round, and even though it is a little heavier than a 3 Series, it still feels every bit a BMW.
Okay, so hopefully you're still with me. We've covered the 4, we've covered the 20. This is a D, denoting diesel. You also get the 420i, which is fuel injection being petrol. Not to be confused with BMW's i models, being the i3 and the i8. Those are the pinnacle of BMW's technology in terms of saving the environment and being green. They are developed with carbon fiber bodies, making them lightweight, fuel efficient with great performance. Both the i3 and the i8 do come with petrol engines as well, unless of course you buy the i3 BEV, which is a purely electric car. The technology from the i models comes down into the 3 Series, the 7 Series and the X5 into what they call the E Performance. So we've got I, E, D. Stay with me. E Performance models is really bringing the I technology into standard series production cars. So they still offer the fuel efficiency, the great performance, but at a more reasonable price than what you'd pay in an i8 or an i3.
This 420D Gran Coupé Auto we're driving comes in just over 650,000 rand, but the range starts just under 600 with the 420i Coupé, heading right up to 850,000 for the 440 Gran Coupé. Both the convertible and the M4 have also received the new updates, with the M4 convertible competition model topping out the price tags at 1.5 million.
BMW sedans are also available with 2 extra little letters at the end just to make things extra confusing. You get the GC or Gran Coupé, like what we're driving. That's available in the 4 Series and the 6 Series. And then you get the GT, which is available in a 3 Series and a 5 Series. And what that means is just a higher driving position with a boot lid that's more like a hatchback. Obviously that's what you get on the Gran Coupé as well, a bigger boot lid, but it just looks so much better in the Gran Coupé.
It works better too. The boot might be exactly the same size as the 3 Series sedans, but it feels just that much more accessible given the different tailgate. Moving inside the car though is where you see most of the updates for the new 4 Series. Essentially, it's just been refined. Touches like double stitching on the upholstery, gloss black and chrome finishes on the center console, and some new upholstery colors give you a more luxurious feel. The big addition is the change to multimedia interface, which now has tiles on the control pad to make it easier to use. It's a much simpler layout and very easy to browse around. You can also now opt for a multifunction instrument display with different options depending on your drive mode.
There was a time that this little badge would denote that you had spent a fortune on a high-performance car, an M3, an M4, an M5, bragging rights to the hilt. Nowadays, if you see it on a car, like what we've got here, the Gran Coupé, it just means you've got the M Sport Performance package. And what that is, essentially some nice body stuff, aesthetic stuff, exterior and interior, and in this case also the sporty suspension.
Wherever you see that iconic M badge, you know you're getting that little something special to make your car stand out. Apart from being available on most of the BMW series, you can of course also get it on some of the X models, which is something we haven't even touched on here because, well, that's a whole new can of worms, especially with the X2 and X7 imminent. Will the X2 be a coupe version of the X1, I wonder, in line with similar naming standards where the X4 is a coupe of the X3 and the X6 is a coupe of the X5?
Well, I don't know about you, but my brain is completely fried trying to explain this to you, never mind having you understand it. Right from the base model 1 Series up to the top of the range i8 or top of the range 7 Series, BMW has got it covered. The one thing you can be sure of right throughout the range is that you are getting a driver-focused car. Want more practicality? Buy a Gran Coupé. Want more greenery? Buy an I or an E. Want more performance? Buy an M package or an M car if you've got the money. The only thing they're missing is a bakkie.